there are a lot of men that need help. If there is something that a man can endure that can demoralize them, it is being told that women have an eye of seeing potential. That I'll tell you, even when you are broke. Hello, good people. Welcome to Reality Check Daily. My name is James and I'm your host today. So today we'll be discussing why men need help and why is it so difficult for men to ask for help. So I was watching a video done by Robert Burale, one of the many great speakers we have in Kenya, and his movement, the Leave No Man Behind movement. He gives a narrative and here it is.
Men need healing. Men need just a man to say it is okay, my brother.
Yes.
Just hold on one more day. Help is on the way. I know it's tough, but I've been there. And I want to give you this story before I sit down. There's a man who fell in a ditch. The ditch was so deep and he couldn't get out by himself. And then he had somebody passing and he shouted, "Help me! Help me!" And the guy checks down there. He sees this man and takes a pen and a paper and throws a note there. The note says, "When you get out, come. I'm a doctor, will treat you for free." How many men have heard that story, when you get out? Then the second person was passing. He shouted, "Help me! Help me!" The guy checks in the hole again. Pen and a paper, writes a note and throws down and says, "When you get out, come, I am a lawyer. We shall sue the company that did this. I'll do it pro bono." But the key is when you. How many men have had that? When you get out. That's how men have said, "Okay, fine, I can't get out, I'll commit suicide." And then the third person was passing. And this guy was already tired, his lips were dry. His saliva was tasting metallic. And he shouted, "Help me! Help me!" This guy looks down. And this guy looks up. This guy looks down again. And this guy looks up. And the guy jumps into the hole. Now this man was saying, "Help me," says, "How foolish can you be? Now we are stuck here, the two of us. Why couldn't you just get a ladder or a rope?" The guy says, "My brother, don't worry. I have been in this hole before. I know the way out." There are some holes you have been as a gentleman. It was painful. But that hole is to give somebody else the way out. Gentlemen, today you got to be bound by your pain. Your scar, which has healed, must whisper to somebody else's wound and say, "It's okay. I'm coming for you. Leaving no man behind."
Just by listening to that video and listening to this great man speak, I pondered, and amongst the resolutions I had made for myself this year is that I will expand in my community with fellow men, specifically fellow men, and I will be very deliberate and intentional about being in gatherings, conferences, groups, fellowships of fellow like-minded men. So as I watched this video, I came to realize that there are a lot of men that need help. I have been in such a season before where I have isolated myself, being overwhelmed by work, having so much to do, and sometimes it's easy for a man to fall apart owing to the many demands that we have from society. We are the breadwinners, and the majority of the time we have to act strong even though we do not feel strong. So I have been in that place where I have been depressed, I'm weighed down, I am overwhelmed, and I am down on my knees. Is that I feel like that all the strength and energy I have has been sapped into every form of responsibility and role that I play. So amongst the major things I rejoice over fellowship, that's why I made that resolution, is that whenever I have been with fellow men, and it is very specific, and I say so very intentionally, when I have been in fellowship with other fellow men, I have found that I have experienced renewal, refreshment, and even rejuvenation. I come out of that place having new strength, just like you take your car for servicing and the oil is changed. And yes, so you feel that you have been lightened of your burdens and so on. And the majority of the time, we won't even talk about what we are going through, but we'll just have meaningful conversations and bond with one another. So I believe that as men, it is paramount for men to bond with other men, more so like-minded men. That is what I'll say. So I love what Proverbs says, that as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. So it is in the place of fellowship with other men that you are recharged and that you are sharpened. So for majority of the men, though your lifestyle may be busy, though I remember at one point just considering to start a gym membership and join a gym just so I could be around other fellow men and everything. So it is quite paramount. Isolation is not good for a man, and being around like-minded men who are able to build you up, and men that are able to encourage you, and men that you also admire. So I am not talking that you involve yourself in ungodly company. If there's somebody that you admire, be around such kind of people. I have benefited a great deal just by being mentored in my workplace, and even in life in general, just by hanging around people whom I admire. So it is in that place where a man is able to open up to you about the various challenges that they have gone through, even their failures. And this is something that men rarely do, because we are more so naturally egocentric. We do not like to admit or confess of our failures or our misgivings or our shortcomings. But I have been around men who are vulnerable enough to share with me such, and that I have found encouragement in that, in knowing that I should never count myself out. I should never rule myself out. But such stories inspire me to know that there is hope beyond what I see or perceive. And it just pushes me and gives me the vigor to continue fighting. So my first admonition before I continue would for somebody, a fellow man, to know the capacity in which they could grow and the opportunities that are availed just by being around fellow men. There is nothing new under the sun, and what you have gone through, be sure that somebody else has gone through it, and you do not need to go through the same scenario, the same kind of challenge or suffering. You can learn from your fellow brethren, but you have first to avail your time. You have to be intentional for you to show up, whether it's in a meeting, whether it's in a fellowship, whether it's in a gathering, whether it's in a family setup, whether it's in a work setup, in all forms of avenues that avail to you. Be keen that you show up, and it is in such places where you are molded into a better version of yourself. But if you are isolated, I am imagining that we are living in an era where things that we knew are becoming obsolete. There is the rise of AI and so many technological stuff. So if you operate under a knowledge that is inferior, we'll have a different reality. But when you are sharpened and you are renewed and transformed, you operate under a higher standard and reality. So the real essence is that your life could be better, your health could be better, your mental health could be better, even your work could be better if we interacted with knowledge, if we interacted with other people and got to know their different kind of perspectives, got to learn about their different experiences. So it is through being exposed to truth that you are able to discern the lie in your life. And once you discern that lie, you create that possibility of living a better life because you have now been empowered with knowledge. So that is the first thing that I would say. I have come to realize that most men suffer in silence. They are not willing to open up to other people, and they just endure their pain and their suffering without anybody knowing. Owing to such a factor, I don't think it's a surprise that women tend to grow older or die with a longer lifespan as opposed to men. You'll mostly see that men have a short lifespan when compared to women. So I think this is one of the major contributors, that women are able to submit to other women. Women have a lot of social groups that they will meet in, share with one another, and in confiding with one another, in sharing their problems with one another, they are able to get solace, comfort, and all forms of meaningful solutions, as opposed to men who would rather be silent about their problems. They are going through a rough patch, but they keep it in silence, and they are unable to get the help that they so desperately need. It is easy for a man even to fellowship and go home hungry. They do not have even supper, yet they could not even open up because of the sense of shame. So I was wondering, why is it so hard for men to ask for help? Number one, and I got a few insights from one of the online groups that we were having this discussion. So amongst the factors that were mentioned is that men rarely ask for help because growing up, we have always been told, be a man. And this be a man phrase mostly sometimes is interpreted to men do not ask for help. So society has conditioned us as we were boys growing up that we should not even cry, be a man. So when we more so often hear that phrase, be a man, we think about being independent and just relying on yourself wholly and lacking any form of external help. So number two, just based on this factor of growing up being told be a man, there's yes, being a, or sometimes when you have a shortcoming, or you are down, you are told that you are not man enough. So that erodes your character, because you are told be a man just so that you can endure pain and suffering, you can endure the storm. And sometimes when you are not able to do that, you are told that you are not man enough. So this somehow bruises your identity and your ego. So you will find that sometimes men withdraw in a state of confusion, not knowing whether they retreat, not knowing whether to share, whether just to confide in themselves. They do not want to put themselves out there so that they are vulnerable to ridicule, they are vulnerable to shame and all manner of scorn. So I think that's why men keep to themselves. As it is, men are trained from the onset to fight for themselves and to fend for themselves. There have been scenarios where men, just by opening up, have been laughed at and they have been ridiculed. This has caused a lot of men to learn from such scenarios and to withhold. So we find that sometimes it can be toxic, just owing from being raised all these concepts of being a man and you are not man enough. I think they are in life. I think one of the biggest challenges, I would say, I thank God that I do not have such a kind of a wife, because if there is something that a man can endure that can demoralize them, it is being told that you are not a man. More so from a nagging woman. It erodes your identity, it erodes your self-worth and your esteem, and your pride and your ego is robbed and severely and critically wounded. And there's a lot of healing that needs to be done. So when a person who has been in a toxic relationship and they are told you are not a man, simply because they are not able to provide, simply because they lost a source of income or livelihood, simply because they are unable to afford for their family vacations and so on, and they are mocked by their spouses that they are not man enough. It really erodes their sense of self, because men are naturally created to provide, to provide, and just to be in that place of authority and leadership. So owing to the way men are raised to fight for themselves, And when they need help, some of them have been ridiculed and have been ashamed. You find that men sometimes not only withdraw, but they do not submit. Because submission in societal terms is mostly associated with weakness. So for a man to submit, it's deemed as being weak. So, but on the contrary, in Corinthians, the word of God admonishes us that the man is the head of the woman, and Christ is the head of the man, and God is the head of Christ. So in that umbrella, so I would say that the number one submission for a man is to submit to Christ. And this is very critical, because a woman will not follow you if they do not know your vision. If their vision is not clear, and I'll tell you that women have an eye of seeing potential. That I'll tell you. Even when you are broke, don't think that your woman, as you are dating, could not see the potential, even though it had not manifested, could not see the treasure that was in you. So the woman is able even to detect the greatness in a man just by being around them, seeing their persona, their aura. Even though this greatness has not manifested, they are able to choose their spouses right. So in essence is that every man has greatness in them, and that's one of the things that women choose when selecting their life mates. So as a man, the number one thing that you should have is a vision. And this vision, you don't necessarily you don't need to have all ducks in a row. You just need to be clear. You need clarity of that vision, and that vision you get and understand just by going to God, because we are created to be priests of our home. We are created to be the head of our families. So you need to go before God in prayer, in seeking his face, and inquire from God, how do you wish that I lead this family? Give me the knowledge, give me the wisdom, give me direction. Just like Moses went before God and said, how will other people know that you are pleased with me if you do not walk with us? So it is important to know that God is always near to us, but we should take that step to draw near to him. And in doing so, he is able to draw near to us. So the number one role for a man would be to get intimate with God, to submit to God. And in so doing, God is able to share all secrets, all wisdom, all knowledge pertaining destiny, pertaining direction, pertaining every life choice, every decision about family, about work. And when you communicate that to your spouse, to your children, and they see it manifesting, because where God leads, there is enough grace. So when it manifests, there is even more respect. There is even more submission. Even the wife is able to submit to you. Your children are able even to submit to you more, because they see the results of what you have said. And yes, I think that's the number one thing. I have seen it too true to be in my life. There are things that I've spoken concerning the direction of my family, and which were even some very radical, and some that were purely just based on faith. But these were things that God had spoken to me in the secret place. And when they came to pass, my wife was shocked, and she even yielded to me more. And sometimes I thank God for my wife, because she did not ridicule me. Because sometimes God gives you a vision and you do not have resources. Your current reality or your present time does not in any way match. So some of these things are laughable. I thank God for all the women, for all the spouses that stand with their husbands when they lay out the vision for the family. They are not ridiculed, because some of these things seem unrealistic, because that's the whole essence. Anybody who goes before God must have faith. And God, when we go before him, he communicates things that just require faith, just require leaning and entirely trusting in him, just so that they can come to be true in our lives. For men, I recommend, after submitting to God, submit to other men. Look for men whom you admire, people who have results, tangible results, people who are aligned to what you desire to be in life, to what you desire to do. Seek help from such. Do not shy away. I know we are living in a dispensation where we are more conscious, we are more radical, we are able to identify destructive generational patterns. So sometimes as a man, you may lack people in your family who you share the same vision, people in your circle who sometimes you don't share. Just like Joseph, his dream was too big that even the father would not believe, because Jacob asked, "Do you mean that me and your mother will down before you, as well as the brothers?" And they called and they dubbed a name for him as the dreamer. So I think it is important in this era that we can get mentors. Sometimes the mentor we are looking for may be online. So I personally have benefited a great deal just by listening to Les Brown, Miles Monroe. Nowadays, the men I love to listen to, Apostle Joshua Selman, Apostle John Kimani William. I also love listening to Reva Ekisiana. So there are a lot of men. I remember when I would just binge on videos by Brian Tracy, videos by Eric Thomas, videos by Zig Ziglar, videos by John Maxwell, a lot of great men. I mostly inclined towards Jim Rohn and Les Brown in the course of time. But they played such a pivotal role in me, just in showing me the direction that I should take, and me applying all those fundamental steps. I was able to achieve quite significant milestones in my life, and I am grateful. So if you're in a space where you are not able to find a mentor in the physical, that is, you cannot look up to people because you are trying to break all these sorts of things, you know that there's a lot of information. We are living in the information age. So you indulge in pursuit for knowledge, and you will be able to find a mentor. They may not be there physically, but because words are powerful, you are able to get that knowledge and be sharpened to be the man that you desire to be. So I'll say yes. I'll say it is also very keen, because the way it is not by mistake or error, it is not erroneous that God created us in those places that we live in, and in those families where we come from, just like the book of Acts of Apostles says. So all these are not by accident, but it is by God's design. So God will sometimes send people your way. It is good for you in terms of destiny helpers, and so different, and many other different angles. It is important for you to have sound judgment and discernment, so that you know this is, sometimes you pray for a miracle and God sends you a person. I remember just listening to Jim Rohn, and he said, I found a miracle in my mentor Al Schoff, because Al Schoff was the millionaire maker. He made Jim Rohn to be a millionaire. So, and not only shaped him in the place of finances, but also in the place of character. He taught him the importance of reading the Bible, of scripture, and so many other things. So he influenced him even in the place of character. So it is important that you are able to see the men that God sends your way, because they act as miracles. They are able to come in your life and mold you to be a better version of yourself, or propel you more so to destiny. So sometimes we may be looking online. I'm just giving that as an example, owing to the era and the times that we are living in. But God sends men our way. But it is for us to nurture these relationships. It is for us to be keen, to be able to see and to anticipate such, so that our lives are able to be built up. My urge to men: do not isolate yourself. Do not live in isolation. Do not deem asking for help as a sign of weakness. Do not deem submission as a sign of weakness. Submit to God, number one. That is paramount. Submit to God. A man who submits to God is able to walk in abundance and dominion. You are able to go through doors. You are able to do exploits. You are able to be mighty and strong. Number 2, submit to other men. You do not need to make the same mistakes over and over again. If you are in a certain domain, if you are having a certain struggle, go be mentored. Be mentored by a man who has been through the same kind of ordeal, who has been through the fire. Because just like Paul was beaten by the snake, as he was ministering to these people, the venom did not kill him or poison him. So he just continued to minister. So there are men who have been beaten by the same snakes, and they have a formula of getting you out of the hole, just like Pastor Burale says. So you do not need to be by the storm yourself, inside the hole by yourself. There are people who have been sent your way. So be keen to welcome them in your life. Be keen to reception really matters. So there's the horizontal dimension of God's love. So God is able to use men to be a blessing to us. God sends men into our lives to be a solution to our problems. But the reception that we give them really matters a lot. In scripture, it says that some have entertained angels without knowing. So when God sends men in our way, it is good that we receive them with the kind of reception that they deserve, so that we are able to obtain that blessing. Finally, because we are living in an information age, do not stay there whining or complaining or in a pity party in the event that you lack a physical mentor. Go online, search for solutions, and you will find great men. I personally have benefited a great deal from Dr. Miles Monroe. He is no longer here, as well as Jim Rohn. And one of the people I listen to, that is Apostle Joshua Selman. He also cites Dr. Miles Monroe a lot. So in essence, what I am trying to say is that the internet is a rich bank of knowledge if you are searching for the right things. Thank you for watching the entire video. If this is the kind of content that you enjoy, be sure to hit the subscribe button and to hit the notification bell. Thank you. Until next time, stay blessed.